So, Bruchim Habaim, welcome everyone. We're going to be beginning in just a moment here, so if you could find a seat. I'm really excited this morning that we're being joined by some very special guests here at Temple Sinai, and really looking forward to continuing our learning. This is sort of the last of three pieces that we've done this weekend as an Israel Shabbaton. Yesterday we heard from Orly Zehavi at the Israel Religious Action Center, our Reform Movement partner in Israel, and this morning we'll be hearing from a really special guest, Lieutenant Colonel Reserve Sarit Zehavi, who's here joining us from Israel. She and David of Alma, which is a research and education center, nonprofit that does research and education on the security issues of Israel's northern border. And we're really grateful that you're here. Just such an important topic, especially because there are lots of things that we learn about Israel from the news, lots of things we learn about Israel from the media and from culture, but lots of things that are also underreported. And so part of what we're here today to learn is a little bit of the perspective of what it's like to be in this very specific local situation on the northern border of Israel, a part of the news that we don't hear so much, and to get a sense of what it means to be Israeli today through the lens of these challenges and opportunities in the security situation. We're really excited this morning to be joined by several of our teens who are going to be going to Israel this March with us. And so I want to say Yishar Koach to you all for committing to be here and for committing to come with us to Israel in the spring. And we're really looking forward to that. And also we're preparing to take a trip in April, just after you guys go, together as a community with our partners at UJA. And if you're interested in that, there's going to be an information meeting. You can find out how to join us coming up December 13. So that's, I think, in just under a week and a half. So with that, I'm really excited to introduce our special guest, Sarit. If you would please come and join me up here. And we thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Well, I'm extremely excited to be with you today. It's my second time in Canada. It's the first time as a tourist with my family, and that's how I met Tzvi over here. He took us to tour the city. And now we mean business. Now it's different. I hope I have the opportunity to give you a little bit information about what's going on. But first, I want to say a few words about myself. So I'm a lieutenant colonel in reserve. I served for about 15 years in the Israel Defense Forces. I was an intelligence officer, meaning I was kind of an analyst. I received all the information to my computer, and I wrote the reports about what's going on. I spent half of my time in the Northern Command. I live up north. I am here with my CEO of Alma, David, who also lives up north. So we basically live 12 kilometers from the Israeli-Lebanese border. That's far away in Israeli terms. And I have MA in Middle Eastern Studies, and actually throughout my life, I dreamt to deal with the Middle East, to research the Middle East, to understand what exactly is going on, why there is no peace, why there is no democracy. And Alma Centre was an opportunity for me to fulfill this dream. What shaped my dream to establish this center is my personal experience as an IDF officer during the war with Lebanon, the previous one in 2006. And the photos that came out in the media, you mentioned the media, Rabbi, about collateral damage and casualties in Lebanon that caused a lot of criticism against Israel and also a lot of international pressure against Israel that eventually ended the war in a situation that we didn't defeat Hezbollah. Hezbollah continued to launch rockets to Israel's north until the last day of the war. Ended in a situation that we didn't bring back the soldiers that were kidnapped by Hezbollah at the first day of the war. and ended in the situation that the UN Security Council resolution that was supposed to shape a new reality, a new future for Lebanon-Israel relationship, for peace and security on the border, actually was not a good enough resolution. And the situation that we see today is quite the opposite of what the engineers of this resolution meant. And I will, of course, elaborate about that. So this is what shaped my motivation to establish Alma Centre as a platform to provide information about what's going on Israel's northern borders. During the years, I understood that my mission is it's even greater, it's even bigger, because social media developed. You guys here knows that better than me, spreading a lot of lies on Israel before wars or operations, during wars, and we have a situation that there is a lot of misinformation and lack information, okay? And it's two different things, by the way, but both create a situation that people don't know. People don't know what's happening, neither inside Israel nor on the borders with security and everything. One of the points that really made me angry as an Israeli was after the terrorist attacks in Paris. I don't know if you remember, in 2015, there were ISIS terrorists that attacked at the same time few places in Paris, including one of them was a Jewish supermarket, but not only, a concert. Many people got killed. After these attacks that, again, were carried out by ISIS, the French president published a new initiative to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Now, okay, we have a completely different problem here. ISIS is a radical Muslim Sunni group that is taking over areas of the Middle East. What's all of that got to do with Palestinians? Today, ISIS was won by the Western coalition with the help, or maybe by the Russians with the help of the Western coalition, with the help of Syrian armed forces. But we have new problems, or new old problems, if you like, and I will focus on this. But before that, one thing about my mission. And I think, I had a lot of discussions with Zvi, how should we frame, how should we explain what I actually do and why am I doing that when I get up in the morning, because Alma Centre is my life mission. So I believe, maybe it's because I was a researcher and analyst in the army, I believe that the information is the basic for everything. You cannot understand anything unless you have information, unless you gather the information. So we gather the information from the Arabic language. We don't just speak Hebrew or English. Our center speaks 3 languages, and I hope that in the near future, 4 languages, including Persian. But we definitely, everything that we publish is based on the research, is based on even sometimes exclusive research that goes to the sources, to the hardcore, to, kind of inside information, but actually that is not based on any intelligence, just on open sources. Then we know how to analyze, because we do have experience in that. So we understand how it should be done, and then all of that is actually in order to be capable of educating. So today you will see a lot of examples during my presentation about security of how we do it and what we do. And very important is not only these, speaking engagements, it's nice for the adults, but with the kids here, you want to experience. And we are going to experience a little bit today, just a taste of experience, okay? And when you come to Israel and you see the borderline, and again, I'll try to do it a little bit over here, you experience. And it's different than standing in Toronto and talking about it, of course. But I think the last one is the most important, because again, everybody speaks about the Israeli-Palestinian issue, but the Israeli-Palestinian issue, in my point of view, is not the issue. There are many more issues. There are many more issues in Israel. There are many more issues in the Middle East. There are many, many more issues. And I think that when I established Alma Centre, what I wanted to do is to put things in proportion. I wanted to make sure that people understand, like zoom out. People see that it's not only Israeli-Palestinian issue, it's the ISIS or Iran or, I don't know, Egypt, or whatever it is. I'm focusing on the north, but there are many, many issues happening in the Middle East at the same time, which are actually completely against human rights, against Western values. People are getting hurt. Things happen here in the in the Middle East that people don't know and actually don't give too much attention to. And you know what? I thought a lot of how to explain this to you, but when I entered Toronto, I received the answer. We saw trucks. Do you recognize the site? It's your hometown. Okay, do you see the flags? You see the flags on the trucks? These are the flags. I don't know if they look familiar, and if they don't, it's obvious that they don't actually. Because it looks almost like the Iranian flag. But it's not the Iranian flag. There is a lion and a sun in the middle, right? What was that? This flag is the flag of Iran, if you like, until the Islamic Revolution in 1979. And it's in the middle of Toronto in 2022. This is a protest. Okay, you can say it's because of the World Cup in Qatar, it's because of the protest in Iran. Anything you'll say, I will agree. But in any case, it's a protest. Using this flag rather than using the current flag of Iran means that these people want to say something to you. And what they want to say is that what is happening today in Iran is wrong, because a few hundreds of people were killed and a few tens of thousands were arrested, while their only sin was to protest against their government, or for the women not to wear the hijab, to take it off in the middle of the street. This is something that may be more important than other stuff, but I don't see students going out to the streets to demonstrate for that. And when I watch the videos from Qatar, I see many people holding flags free Palestine, but only Iranian holding flags free Iran, free the women of Iran. I don't see people from, just taking one example, but of course there are more. I saw a video of one drunk man that participated there in the World Cup in Mondial, and he was very happy. His English team just won the game. He was extremely happy. He was singing, and then he said, "Free Palestine." What about the women of Iran? Who will free them? So that's just, one example about all of that. But, I told you that I am dealing with what is happening on my borders, 12 kilometers from home, or if you like, 40 kilometers from home if it's the Golan Heights, if it's Syria. So let's talk about Syria. Syria is, in the past 10 years, having a brutal civil war that almost ended, by the way, in most places, and I will elaborate later. But these are just the results until today of the civil war in Syria. The population of Syria before the civil war was around 23 million people. So about half of them became homeless. About half of them. It means that most of the country was destroyed. Half of the half are refugees, meaning they are no longer living in Syria. Maybe some of them came to Canada. I know that Canada opened its borders to Syrians. How many students are going to protest for these poor Syrians in the campuses? How much attention does this get in social media? You mentioned social media, guys. I don't know, but not enough. Definitely not enough. So I think that when I'm standing next to the border with Syria, and up to a few years ago, we could actually see the civil war, we could smell the civil war, we could hear the civil war, because we saw the bombings of the towns, and if you like, the carpet bombings of the towns by the Russian jets over there, the same way they are doing in Ukraine today. We saw that, and suddenly I felt that my mission is expanding because I don't always only care about Israel. I care about the Syrians that are just on the other side of the border, and nobody is protesting for them. Maybe it's because my father was born in Damascus, I don't know. Okay, one of the things that, and I must say that usually comes up, maybe because I was an officer in the army, I'm a lieutenant colonel, as I've said, is the frame or the expression double standard. Did you hear that? A double standard. I want to say something. I want to say a statement about this double standard, okay? Maybe I will surprise you. I don't want to be judged by the standard of my neighbors. My neighbors, like the Syrian president, for example, he's a butcher. He killed his own people. I want to be judged by Western values. I want to be compared to things that happened by Canadian, English, American, French, British, whatever. I don't have any problem with that, actually. I believe in these Western values, and I believe that IDF is working according to these Western values. And I believe the IDF, it's not that I believe, I know, because I was there, that IDF invests a lot of money and resources to make sure that we are working according to these Western values. But, and here is the question about complexity, these people that are criticizing Israel, do they truly know? Do they truly know the context? Do they truly know the history? Do they truly know the geography, the size of Israel? Do they truly know what the security challenge looks like in our daily lives? What they truly know about terror? They don't really know. So I don't think it's about double standard. I think it's about ignorance. I think people don't know. So my job is to give a little bit of context. My job is to zoom out, to talk about many things that are happening in the Middle East that nobody else knows about, that Israel is influenced by them, but not necessarily influencing these things. Things that are not necessarily connected to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but definitely put in danger countries in the Middle East: Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Bahrain, Yemen, a few examples. And recently, I don't know if you've seen in the news, we've seen that things that happen in the Middle East not necessarily stay in the Middle East, and there are leaks elsewhere. Two examples, if you like. One example, Ukraine again. Just last month, the Russians used Iranian drones to bomb Kiev, shut down the electricity in Kiev. These Iranian drones are the same Iranian drones in the hands of Hezbollah, which is on my border, 12 kilometers from me, in Lebanon. These Iranian drones are the same Iranian drones that just landed in Caracas, in Venezuela. Somebody here told me that there are many Canadians in Florida in the winter. Okay. They are within the range of these drones. It's 2,000-kilometer range. Miami is in the range of these drones, of these Iranian drones that were provided to Venezuela. Drones that could be suicidal drones, attacking drones, smuggling drones, or intelligence drones. All of the above. So let's get started. And I want to get started from this photo that is from exactly the border between Israel and Lebanon. I'm not mistaken. This photo was taken from the border between Israel and Lebanon. Do you recognize that? It's on your flyer for today's event. The Golden Dome there. The Dome of the Rock. It's in Jerusalem. But this photo was taken from the border with Lebanon. It's a model of a Dome of the Rock that was built on the border between Israel and Lebanon. And if I do like that, I can see it. To the left of it, there is a flag. This is a Palestinian flag. To the right of it, on top of the Golden Dome, there is another flag. And when I take the groups to the border, and I take the groups to the border every day, I give them binoculars. And they get the binocular, they do like that, they look like that, and they see, oh, Sarit, there is a flag on top of the Golden Dome. And it's an Iranian flag, the current one, not the one that you saw with the lion and the sun over there. The one of the Islamic Revolution. It's Lebanon. It's not Iran. It's not Palestine. It's not next to anything that's next to the West Bank. It's Lebanon. Sometimes, to make sure we are not confused, there are more symbols. And a few meters from this site, there is a tower. And on top of the tower, there is a character, a sculpture that commemorates a commander. You can see that this person is a commander or a military person. And I don't know if you heard the name. This person is Qasem Soleimani. Qasem Soleimani was an Iranian general that was killed in Iraq by the Americans a few years ago. And he was the commander of all the Iranian proxy militias in the Middle East, including Hezbollah. Iranian proxy militias in the Middle East means local Syrians, means Afghanis, Pakistanis, means Iraqis, means Yemenis. Who didn't I mention? Iranians. This person is Iranian. No Iranian proxy militias outside of Iran? Hardly. Very, very little. Iranians prefer to use other people's bloods to achieve what they want. And when I'm saying Iranians, I just want to make clear, it's not the Iranian people. I am not talking here today about the Iranian people. I am talking about the leadership. I am talking about the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. I'm talking about those who dictate the Iranian policy. And this is a very important distinction. So this photo was taken again from the Lebanese-Israeli border. And Qasem Soleimani's sculpture here is pointing at Israel. So the view, most of the view that you see here is the Galilee. These fields are Israeli. This is Israeli agriculture. And he's pointing at us as if he's saying, I'm coming. Revenge is coming. I'm coming to get you. In a sense, I can say that on my other side of the border, I see two failed states. I see Lebanon and I see Syria, and I'll give you more details around that in a minute, but I want to emphasize that actually when you see this, you understand that Israel is the Western Front with Iran. Maybe Ukraine as well now. Maybe Ukraine as well. Western Front with Russia, with Iranian involvement, if I want to be accurate about what's going on in Ukraine. So this is how I feel when I travel on the borderline. Now, I want to show you another photo that was taken last week, just before I came to meet you. Two photos from two different places on the border, just 10 minutes from each other. These are Hezbollah. These are Hezbollah military operatives that are taking photos or following or gathering intelligence, all of the above, about me, or about IDF soldiers that are patrolling on the border, visiting the border, sometimes IDF officers. These sites became regular sites on the Israeli-Lebanese border. I never get used to this, of course. Here's another one. In the past year. The situation was not like that a year ago or 2 years ago. It was not like that. The fact that everywhere you go on the border you see military operatives of Hezbollah taking photos of us is a development that happened in the past year and a half. And along the borderline, we see around 20 positions like this of either containers of towers, while there is, I don't know if you can see it on the big screen, a poster here with the name Green Without Borders, as if it's an environment organization. And Green Without Borders is an environment organization registered in the Interior Office of Lebanon, that its declared mission is to plant trees and to put off fire. But you can see clearly that it's not the case here. By the way, the trees that you see over there were not planted by Green Without Borders. These are natural trees. And in most cases, these Green Without Borders positions are in places where there are no trees. Inside this position, you can see these, again, Hezbollah military operatives. Many of them are commando military operatives that just came back from the war in Syria. So they are well experienced and well trained in combat. So this is how actually Hezbollah is using a civilian platform for its own military purposes. And take that in mind for a moment. We'll get back to that in a minute. Another thing I want to point out is, and I mentioned the war in 2006 that ended with a resolution that was not good enough for Israel, a resolution that said that the area next to the border, around 20 kilometers in depth into Lebanon, next to the border, is an area that should be free of any illegitimate military presence, such as this one. In this resolution as well, it's written that the United Nations force to Lebanon, named UNIFIL, will be greatly enlarged to 10,000 soldiers. That's a lot of soldiers. They're supposed to make sure that this is not happening. And in reality, what is happening is that they cannot even get nearby this position. And if they try, they either get beaten or stoned or beat or blocked, and eventually they just turn around and go away fearing for their lives. So that's the daily reality right on the borderline between Israel and Lebanon. Until now, in a way, that's the bad news. I have tons of bad news. How much time do you have? But I have a little bit of good news as well. So I'm mixing the bad news with the good news along the presentation, and I hope it's okay with you. So here is the story, here's the narrative, okay? A few months ago, a floating gas rig arrived to the Mediterranean, arrived to northern Israel, in the sea, around 80 kilometers from the seashore in the north. And its mission, the company is Energy, I don't know if you heard of it. And its mission is to harvest the gas from an Israeli gas field over there. It's a lot of money. Gas for Israel, about 70% of our consumption of energy comes from our gas. To have another gas field where we can harvest the gas, either for self-use or for export, highly important. And they announced that they will start to harvest the gas after some preparations in September 2022. Immediately afterwards came the leader of Hezbollah, Nasrallah, and said that. Oh, you can't hear him. Can you hear him? You can read that.
بالحرب بل حتى الذهاب إلى الحرب أشرف بكثير أعز بكثير. أقول للعدو في هذه الليلة ما يحسب غلط، ما يحسب غلط. والأمريكان هوكشتاين يخدعون اللبنانيون لن يخدعوا. إذا وصلت الأمور إلى الخواتيم السلبية نحن لن نقف فقط في وجه كاريش. هلأ سابت أيام تموز، سجلوا المعادلة الجديدة: كاريش وما بعد كاريش وما بعد ما بعد كاريش. إذا
كريش وما بعد كريش وما بعد كريش. Which language did I speak now? Did he speak? No. Ivrit. He spoke in Arabic, but actually every Israeli, most of us don't speak Arabic, understood what he said. Every Israeli. Now what did he say? Let's see. He said that the war is honorable. It's not that we don't have any other choice. It's not that we must go to war. The war is honorable. He said that actually he will not enable Israel to harvest the gas if Lebanon will not be able to harvest its own gas. He's going to war for that. Reminded you that his military operatives are already on the borderline. And he said that he have the capabilities, maybe with drones, maybe with rockets, to attack this gas rig or this gas field named Karish, that's the name, and further south to Karish. What did he mean? And what actually was going on just when Nasrallah was speaking is that there was a dispute between Israel and Lebanon. A maritime border dispute. All the blue area is actually the Mediterranean. And we couldn't set where the border goes for many, many years. And there was negotiation. He mentioned the name of the mediator, Ochstein, who is an American ex-Israeli, that is the mediator between the two parties. And Israel said to the UN a decade ago that the borderline should be according to line number 1. And Lebanon said that the borderline should be according to line number 23. And there are more maps that even there was another line here of a compromise that the Americans suggested and the Lebanese rejected. And for a decade, we couldn't find a solution to this problem. And it didn't matter because it was just water. And then we found Karish. That's Karish over here. And then the Lebanese announced, you know what? It's not line 23. It's line 29. And Israel said, no, you cannot just all of a sudden double the area of dispute. It's not going to happen. And we rejected that, and the Americans rejected that, and the negotiations continue about the area of dispute between line 1 and line 23, and Nasrallah was actually meaning when he talked about the Lebanese gas, this gas field. That part of it is in Israel completely, and part of it is in the area of dispute. Or if you like, part of it is in the area of dispute, and part of it is in the new area of dispute that Israel and the United States didn't recognize completely. Now, that's the clock. The clock is ticking. There is a floating gas rig that came last May to harvest the gas. There are elections in Israel on November 1st. The Lebanese president is about to finish his term in October, the last day of October, and the Americans want to get an agreement because there is a huge economic crisis in Lebanon, and of course getting the gas will help Lebanon, by the way, not tomorrow morning, 3 to 5 years. But it's better than nothing. Now what do you do? And you're the Israeli Prime Minister, what do you do? What, you give up, you create a compromise, the Lebanese don't want to, what do you do? And Nasrallah is threatening to go to war, which in a minute I will explain what is war for us. And that's not the good news part. Eventually, we wake up in the morning, just a week before elections, and we hear that there was an agreement signed. And due to this agreement, line 23, which is the original Lebanese position, will be the border. Israel decided to make a concession. The good news, we can harvest the gas, and as we speak, Karish gas rig is working and producing gas. As we speak, the Lebanese already started with a French company named Total to search for the gas in Cana. And as we speak, even the alert among Hezbollah military operatives on the border became smaller, reduced. So that's all the good news. What's the bad news? The bad news is psychology, and this is highly important in the Middle East. The bad news is psychology. And the psychology is that Israel made a concession under the threats of Hezbollah. That's the psychology part of that. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad agreement or a good agreement, it was right or wrong. I stay away from politics. It's much more healthy. But what I'm saying is that maybe we didn't have too much of a choice and the messaging is not good. What's the threat looks like? Why threatening war means really, really bad news? This is how the threat looks like. And the threat is 145,000 mortars, which are to short range, not too much damage, but can kill people. The smallest here. 65,000 short range, it's in my map, short range, but it can get to Jerusalem if it's on the border. 2,000 drones, the same one that you saw what they know how to do in Kiev. 5,000 advanced missiles, which include also PGMs, precision-guided missiles, not 5,000, very few, maybe a few tens, maybe a few hundreds, we don't know. Not 5,000. That's the good news, not 5,000. These are the ranges. That's the same colors as the pie, meaning that you can see that's 65,000 in the orange line that can get almost to Jerusalem. There are also what we call the Grad. There's the one that was launched to Israel just last August, in August 2021, landed in an Arab town in the Galilee, 100 meters from the homes. It's an example. Fatah 110 are the missiles that are what I've said, PGMs. You got it. Now, I tell you the truth, I meet a lot of Canadian students, but I also meet a lot of Americans. It's with the numbers. Most of the tourists are Americans. And Americans, it's funny. In most groups, I get a question. They look at this map, and they either say, Sarit, what's the solution? Or they say, Sarit, I don't understand. Israeli intelligence, we have very good intelligence, don't you? Yes, we do. You know where the rockets are in Lebanon? Yes, we do. Why don't you bomb them? Or why don't you bomb them tomorrow? Or why don't you bomb them before you bomb Iran? That's now the new question that is going on. Well, these are very important questions. And the answer is that we don't bomb them because most of these rockets are hidden inside the homes of, or under the homes of the Lebanese. Any bombing means killing Lebanese civilians. Simple as that. Or in the hospitals, or next to the mosques, or in businesses, or inside the civilian infrastructure. The second reason is Nasrallah, that you already met and you understand what kind of guy he is. If we bomb them, it's war. So these rockets, bomb them, it's not something that takes 30 minutes. It takes time. It's a lot of rockets. They are spread all over. At the same time, they will be launched to Israel. There will be a lot of damage to Israelis as well. And that's why Israelis are extremely cautious to get to war on the northern borders. Very, very careful. We don't want that. And you see here on my map how much time we have to run for shelter. So those in Jerusalem, they can drink coffee and take a shower before they run to the shelter. They have 90 seconds. Me and David here, we live inside the red circle. We have 15 seconds. I'm not sure we can. Your kids are out of home, but my kids, it's 5 of them. To get them to the shelter in 15 seconds, it's impossible. We understand what war is. The IDF assessments that in times of war, we're going to get 4,000 rockets a day. So here is the next question, right? What is the next question? You got it. You know it. Iron Dome. We have Iron Dome. That's right. That's the good news. We have Iron Dome. It's very successful. Iron Dome has 95, maybe sometimes even more, % of success. Wow. What if one missile will miss? What if one accurate missile that is on its way to Rambam Hospital in Haifa, it will miss? Every missile of Iron Dome worth $50,000. It's a lot of missiles to intercept. So it's good news and bad news. It's not only good news, it's not only bad news. Israel will survive, we shall prevail. But the cost, we're not willing to pay the cost today, only if it will happen, okay. But we don't want to pay the cost. And I'm sure the Lebanese don't want to pay the cost as well. But Hezbollah was willing to take the risk. And that's the main development on our border now. That Hezbollah was willing to take the risk, and it was very cautious in the past years since the previous war not to take the risk. And all of a sudden he threatened war. And he meant business. And that's the news. So there is something that I must talk about, even though it's not news for me anyway. But I don't know if you ever seen these images, what you see now. We are now inside Hezbollah border crossing tunnel. That's half an hour from home for me. The tunnel is fully equipped. Everything you see, the stairs, the communication lines, the electricity, the lights, the air condition, everything was put here by Hezbollah. Yeah, you cannot breathe underground unless you have some kind of ventilation system. You must have that. This tunnel is 80 meters deep. Imagine a building of 22 stories below the ground, 80 meters deep, and 1 kilometer long. That's a huge project. A huge project that took Hezbollah around a decade to excavate at least 6 tunnels that IDF found a few years ago. Someone mentioned Metula. So 3 next to Metula and 3 next to where I live in the Western Galilee. Tunnels that the openings are inside Lebanon, in a business inside Lebanon. Tunnels that it took a few millions of dollars to drill to each of these tunnels. Millions of dollars that the Lebanese don't have. I reminded you, Lebanon is in a very critical, sad, and deep economic crisis in the past few years. So the main question now is, what for? Not to transfer humanitarian aid, right? The mission of the tunnels is not even to enable a squad to cross into Israel. The mission of the tunnel is to enable Hezbollah to send brigades, few hundreds of military operatives, these commando operatives that you could see on the border, down in the tunnel, popping up next to communities, next to IDF positions, and attacking these positions. So again, the good news, IDF found the tunnels, IDF blocked the tunnels, and this strategic capability of Hezbollah was neutralized. And if you come to the border these days, you will see that IDF is building a wall, not very impressive, and yet it's a wall, that may detain, what happened? That may detain the Hezbollah from crossing into Israel easily on this borderline. Now, you see this nice photo, and when I established Alma Centre, to tell you the truth, I was fed up of security and army and all these capabilities that I've shown you. I asked a different question with the research. And my question was, how come? How come mothers like myself agree to put rockets in their homes? It's a basic question. How come? How come the Lebanese agree to become human shields? How come? And eventually, after a lot of research, I think we got the answer. And the answer is that there is no other option. I'm not even sure they can think of options. Because Hezbollah is involved in every aspect of life of the Lebanese. Everywhere. Now, you're a community. This is, you said shul? Shul. I never heard this word before. Yiddish. I'm sorry, I'm Mizrahi. Okay. Community. You provide a lot of services to everything you provide to the community, Hezbollah provides much more. It means, for example, if there is lockdown during COVID, so there is distribution of food. Maybe you did that as well, right? You put a flyer. Who gave you you put a flyer in the food, Temple Sinai. They put a flyer in the food. Who is in the flyer? Hezbollah and Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general, together. That's the Ayatollah. This guy is Iranian, not Lebanese. That's the supreme leader of Iran. You see the flags? These are the Iranian flags, not the one that you saw in Toronto. The real Iranian flags of today's regime. What else? Children's school. This is a Hezbollah school in Beirut. Hezbollah school in Beirut. Boy Scouts, women's organizations, teachers' organizations, students' organizations. Everywhere you look, everywhere, healthcare, allowances. If you need anything, you need an allowance. You need to get a surgery for your daughter. You need to get your child to go to academic school. We are here for you. Hezbollah is here for whatever you need. The Lebanese government is not here for you. They can hardly provide energy. We will bring the oil from Iran and provide energy. What's the problem? We can do that. And if we can do that, what? If we ask you to give us your garage, you say no. You'll give us your garage. And you won't ask any questions. What are we doing with this garage? Maybe hiding some rockets. I don't know. Maybe digging a tunnel. I don't know. You don't ask questions. You get everything you need from Hezbollah. And at the same time, this is Shiite population. Hezbollah is Shiite. Iran is Shiite. Muslim Shiite. They share a basic ideology. On top of that, you can build the ideology that Hezbollah wants to be built, the values that Hezbollah wants to share. And actually, if we research, and we did, the educational events, like this one, of Hezbollah, most of the events are not dealing with Israel, surprisingly enough. They're not even dealing with the United States. Definitely not with Canada. They are dealing with Shiite values, with loyalty to the supreme leader of Iran. So what we actually get when we speak about Lebanon, we get a country that has two armies, Lebanese army and Hezbollah, that one of them is subordinate to Iran, not to the Lebanese government. Tov, One last thing is this, right? I must say a few words about Syria. This map is extremely complicated, and to tell you the truth, I had a dilemma whether to present it here or not, but I decided that you can deal with it, and I hope I was right. What you're looking at is actually a hunt that is being shared by everybody, because the civil war created a situation that everybody got involved in Syria. How many colors do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 colors, 5 colors, and 3 more flags over there. That's 8 players, at least. Can add even ISIS, that's 9 players. Around, thank you. Around 9 players. So before understanding all of them, you understand that sometimes these players, even if they're not exactly fighting and shooting at each other, there is kind of a competition between all of them, how to share the hunt. Now, okay, you have the yellow one, which are the Kurds, and you have the green one over here, and this is what is left of the rebels with a lot of Turkish presence as well. And you have Turkish presence here as well. And you have American presence here. And you have all these roads that are actually coming all the way from Iran to bring the ammunition from Iran. And you have a lot of bases of Iran, and you have bases of Russia, and you have American bases. And this is the hunt. How all of that is influencing Israel. All these types of missiles that I've mentioned are also being brought to Syria to create another front against Israel. So there is the Lebanese front and the Syrian front. By these roads, or sometimes with airplanes, being brought by Iran, and we don't know the amounts. Telling you the truth, we don't know the amounts. But that's Syria, and that's how Syria looks like today, and you can see, since you already saw Qasem Soleimani on the Israeli-Lebanese border, you can see in this map that there is Iranian presence or proxy Iranian presence on the Israeli-Syrian border as well. That's the Golan Heights, for those of you who visited this beautiful place. This is the Golan Heights over here. What's the end goal? Going back to your flyer. That's the end goal. It's the third time that you see this. It's in the flyer, it's in the flag, and now I have a few more here. That's the end goal, to bring all these good guys together to pray in Jerusalem. Now, who do we already recognize here? Okay, you see my clicker. This guy is the Mufti of Al-Aqsa, of the mosque there. This guy is the leader of Hamas in Gaza. This guy you already met in the video. This is Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah. Behind him, it's the leader of the PIJ, which was very famous in the past few months, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, presence in Gaza, in West Bank, in Syria, in Lebanon, financed by Iran. This guy is from Yemen. This guy is from Bahrain. Over here it's Nigeria. This guy is the one who replaced Qasem Soleimani, today the commander of the Iranian militias. And in the sky, that's Qasem Soleimani in the sky. Who is this guy with the mustache? He's not even Muslim. He's Christian. His name is Maduro. He's the president of the... For those who thought that I am talking about the drones of Caracas and I'm telling a joke, Maduro is there. And the last one that you hardly see, because he's not important, is Assad over here, the president of Syria. I guess you got my point. Okay, let's take a few minutes for questions. I think I've spoken enough.
Sarit, I've had the honor of being with you this summer at the border and having the true experience standing at the border
Mm-hmm.
Why are there more green domes as well in the Lebanese border towns?
No, I can't say that. I don't know. There are mosques all the time. I can't say there are more green domes.
The Shia as opposed to the Sunni?
Okay, in basic, most of the population of South Lebanon is Shiite. There are few towns that are Christian that are very close to the border. There is a Sunni town that today we see symbols of Hezbollah in it, which is surprising and interesting. But I don't know more than that.
The other thing I was just wondering, you talked about a wall too, and you did mention once before when I heard you speak about the wall around East Al-Am and how
Mhm.
it's become an issue that people feel like they're living in a ghetto. Is that still an ongoing?
It's an ongoing. The people that are living in the Galilee don't like the idea that IDF is building a wall all along the Israeli-Lebanese border. It makes them feel, as you said, in a ghetto, but the IDF is continuing the project. As we speak, the wall is being built. It didn't stop. More questions? Yes.
One second, Larry.
Oh, thank you.
Two questions, both financial. I remember reading somewhere that those tunnels were funded by the billion euros given to Lebanon several years ago. Can you comment on that?
I think it's combining things together, okay? Somebody wanted to show you that Europe is giving money to Lebanon. Lebanon is under the control of Hezbollah, and Hezbollah is digging tunnels. I can't say that the money that was spent for the tunnels came directly from Europe that knew about it.
Okay, and the other question was on Iron Dome missiles. I remember reading somewhere that you said $50,000 a missile to shoot down the other missiles. I remember reading somewhere that the Americans have come up with something that it's a couple of $100 a missile. Can you comment on that?
It's not a missile. It's a new technology that is now being developed based on laser, but it's not operational yet. And Bennett said it will take, when he was prime minister, he said it will take 2 years. I don't know. It's not operational. You know, as a resident of the Galilee, as long as I don't see this in the sky, it's not there.
Thank you.
Question?
No.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much for this information. You said that Hezbollah has a lot of, how does Hezbollah have the money that it has to buy to pay for the medical things, the scholastic things for all of the people in the country to get their support? Where's their money come from?
The money comes from Iran, and the money comes from self-income of Hezbollah. Now, I want to explain what I've just said. Due to research that were made in the West, 70% of the budgets of Hezbollah come from Iran. So you saw what the Iranian people think about their government. It's not only because of the hijab, it's also because of the fact that the Iranian regime do not invest in their own people. The money goes to the proxies, to the military proxies of Iran in the Middle East, which one of them is Hezbollah. By the way, in the protest in Iran, people were shouting, "No Palestine, no Hezbollah, we want your attention, we want the regime's investment over here in Iran." So the Iranians understand that. Now, I said that this is due researches that were made in the West a few years ago, because I think that Hezbollah is getting more and more money from investments in drugs. There is an industry of drugs, while the materials are coming from Iran. The factories are on the Syrian-Lebanese border, and then they are transferred into Jordan and to Saudi Arabia, and from there to Europe and elsewhere. There are Lebanese that are collaborating with Hezbollah almost anywhere in the world. South America is a very strong area where you have a diaspora that supports Hezbollah. And again, I'm saying all of that very carefully because there are many, many Lebanese that left Lebanon that are completely against Hezbollah. But among the diaspora, there are also those who send money back home to Hezbollah. There are those that support Hezbollah. There are Hezbollah schools in South America, for example. So they got the money. And some of it is coming for free, you know. And Nasrallah said, I will bring Lebanon the oil that it missed for free. Iran will just give it as a present. What's the problem? And the Americans said, no, there are sanctions. You cannot bring the oil from Iran. Rightfully, I think. Yes, over there.
Sorry.
Thank you for all this information. Slightly different with the new government that's coming in. Do you have any anticipation, expectation? Can you predict? How will Israel react differently or take action differently in the next few years?
With regard to the North?
With regard to the North, yes. With regard to how it's looking at all this.
To be honest with you, unfortunately, I don't think any Israeli government truly put the North as a first priority when I speak about the internal issues of the Galilee. Doesn't matter whether it's Netanyahu or anybody else. I didn't see any difference. And when we speak about Hezbollah, I'm saying that in a good way. I don't think there will be a difference. Eventually, this is about national security. With national security, everybody goes straight with lines and understand what needs to be done. I don't see any government, going to adventures. By the way, definitely not Netanyahu, going to adventures in the North and bringing wars that we, as I've said, we are not interested in. I wish he will now take more, give more attention to the North because there are some stuff that we need, like shelters, for example. We need more.
When you say, you mentioned there internally in Galilee and the Golan, the communities that are there, that you didn't expect much of a difference from the current government or the incoming government. Could you just say a little bit more about what you mean by that?
In Kiryat Shmona, there is no emergency room. Mm-hmm. The roads are poor in most places. In order to bring industry, if you traveled with me on the north and you saw the communities which are next to the border, they are neglected. There are no kids in these communities. Mm-hmm. If you want to bring new families and young families to these communities, you need to invest money. You need to encourage them to come. This doesn't happen. If you ask me about internal security, along with the Arab population, well, there's going to be a new minister, as I've heard. And nobody knows how he's going to be because this person has a very problematic history. Yeah. But on the other hand, and I'm trying to present both sides here, okay? I'm not sure I will succeed. But if I'm trying to present both sides, there are those who are saying, even though this guy has a problematic history, when he will sit on the chair of the minister, he will be more responsible. I truly hope that this is what will happen. All I can tell you, and I guess that you were trying to get me to that, is that people voted in Israel in the last election for national security. Mm-hmm. Two things interested the people. Even though I am mostly interested in Hezbollah and Iran, the Israelis, they don't know too much about what I've just told you. And if they know, they live in denial. The Israelis care about national security, and the Israelis care about yoker hamechya, cost of living. Uh-huh. This is why Israelis voted like they voted. Mm-hmm. Will they get what they wanted by this vote? I don't know. But this is why they voted. We had the riots in May 2021, and this was the reaction to these riots. I don't know if you can understand what we experienced. I can tell you as a resident of the Western Galilee, where we have good relationship with the Arabs in our small neighborhood, when we wanted to get out of our small area of 15 minutes drive, we were afraid. We were afraid because the roads were blocked and there were riots on the roads. So this was a reaction to the trauma that happened in May 2021.
Thank you.
Hey,
Hi.
how are you?
Toda. So I was also just with you a little while ago, and to me, what we're talking about now, what you're presenting, as you say, people don't want to hear the truth, and that's exactly what's happening all over the world with the Jewish population, and especially here in Canada, especially in Toronto. People live with their heads in the sand. They don't want to know, like an ostrich. And I think today, if we can take one important message from Sarit, is that we should be talking about what's going on. We should be talking about exactly this, what you see on the screen, because you can all go home now and you go to your comfortable homes and you'll, sit there. But these people in Israel, Israelis, are living every single day with this fear. And it doesn't just affect the Israelis. This is going to happen worldwide. It's happening here now. It's happening in Toronto. You have major, major anti-Israel sentiment everywhere. And people don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear the truth. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Any other questions? I think we have time maybe for one more.
Over here.
Great.
Wait for the
Sorry,
microphone.
hold on 1 second, so we can all hear.
Firstly, thank you for being here again. It's enlightening to have you share all the experiences. I've been following this for years, and I've always been, I guess, not confident that Israel is doing enough. I'm hoping you can instill some confidence in us that the IDF and the powers that be that are actually planning some defense for what, to me, seems inevitable, as well as been building up for years with all those rockets and new technologies and so on. Any idea what Israel can and will be doing to defend?
Sure. You're talking about scenarios.
Yes.
And I put it this way. I think that the main innovation, perception of the security of Israel is what we call the campaign between the wars. Instead of going to an all-out war, wasting all our forces with a lot of casualties on both sides and all this drama, the IDF developed great capabilities to create surgical attacks in Syria, maybe elsewhere, and it is happening. And that's the campaign between the wars. Maybe there is also a campaign between the wars in Iran. Maybe. Without getting into war, without creating a situation that the other side will feel obliged to respond. How do you do that? You don't humiliate them. You don't encourage them to revenge. You don't claim responsibility, actually. So I think this is a brilliant way of postponing the war, of damaging the strategic capabilities of the other side. Is this going to be enough? I'm not sure. But it's a great way of defense. Once getting into war, I think the IDF is, again, you are never prepared. I'm telling you as an ex-officer, you are never prepared enough. There are always more preparations to make. But the IDF in the past 16 years, since the previous war with Hezbollah in 2006, made an extensive way. It became a very advanced army. Even for me to look at what's going on today in the army, and I only left less than a decade ago, it's completely different. The intelligence has improved greatly. The special forces improved greatly. The Air Force, the connection between the different units and the different corps in the IDF is different today. They know how to work together. We didn't know how to work together. Intelligence with Air Force, with forces on the ground. We didn't know how to work together. Now they know how to work together. And I hope that all of these, if needed, will enable us, to fight Hezbollah successfully with the high costs. It will not prevent the high costs. Okay, guys, I want to invite you when you're going out, if you are interested to continue the relationship with us and actually to be updated about what's going on. We publish a lot of information and we have a weekly newsletter. So you're invited to leave your emails to get all we research. There is a lot, I only had an hour. There is a lot of research and a lot of information that we can share. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you all for joining us, and especially thank you to Sarit and David for being here this morning. We have a very special thank you to Harold. Harold Helbut is your last name, right? I'm not mispronouncing it. Good. Harold Helbut, I don't know if you would please just wave so we can all say. Harold is responsible for helping us to bring Alma and Sarit here this morning, and just want to say special thank you to you. We could not have done this without you. We also want to say that this is all a lot of information to digest, and it's all really important information. I think that it was really, really important for us to have our kids here because one of the things that we do here at Temple is really invest in making Israel a part of our everyday community life to the extent that we've had every year since going back, almost 10 years, one of our a Shinshin, someone in between high school and army service, living here in our community, and that we've formed lots of relationships between our youth and Israel by having exchange programs and by being involved in building and supporting congregations like ours in Israel. And that this work doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens because it's where our values are as a community, and we want you to please continue to help us support those initiatives, particularly the return of our teen trip program, which this March is going, and we're really excited to be bringing you all. The other thing I want to say is that this weekend, as we've done a lot of learning about Israel today, both with Sarit's help and also with other speakers earlier this weekend, we'd love for you to fill out a little feedback form that you can find them on the tables in the back here to help us sort of get a sense of how we can do this again, and in the future what we could look at, and how your experience was. So with that, I just want to say thank you one more time, and Yeshar Koach, thank you for all the amazing work you do.